How's it going, everyone? So it's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and we have a couple of snowstorms we need to talk about that could happen within the next week. So let's first begin with the European model. So taking a look a little bit further backward, right around the middle of next week. So we've been talking about this potential of a snowstorm regarding this specific low pressure system in my prior video. And in terms of the possibility we could see snow out of this, it's becoming increasingly likely. However, it's not necessarily going to be in the scenario that you might expect, because we're going to see the snow fall a little bit closer to the interior northeast, and it's becoming less likely that the snowfall will move further southward into the southeast, as it seems like most of the cold air at this point would be located right around the northeast for snowfall to occur. But we still do see a pretty large area of snow. This would happen right around the Wednesday to Thursday time frame. We do see the interior northeast gets involved, the interior portions of Pennsylvania, and then eventually we see that snowfall could extend into New Hampshire, as well as the higher elevations of Vermont as well. If we were to take a look at GFS model scenario, it's a bit more aggressive in taking a larger area of snowfall, where we see the snowfall move as far east as Maine. Maybe Boston could get involved with snowfall in the GFS model scenario. That still has yet to be seen, and we do see the snowfall again over the higher elevations of Pennsylvania. But overall, the storm system is located a lot further eastward. So for those hoping for that possibility of at least some snowfall in the coastal northeast cities, the GFS model would be a little bit more favorable to that idea. But of course, if we're around 130 hours out, so there's still time to really get a better idea of the trajectory of the storm system and exactly where the heaviest snowfall will be located, and if the snowfall could even move far east enough to impact some of the northeast cities like Boston and New York City and Hartford, Connecticut. That still has yet to be seen. At this point, I'm still leaning to the idea that most of the snowfall with this snowstorm will be located in the interior northeast. So cities like Albany, you need to pay very close attention. Burlington, Vermont, you're certainly more likely to receive snowfall. There's still a good amount of uncertainty of where exactly the snowfall will occur, though. So I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of snow along the coastal northeast, but I think that if it were to snow, it'll more likely be right over the interior northeast. It's just a matter of where exactly, because like I said, the GFS model is taking the snow a little bit further eastward, and this brings very heavy snowfall to Maine. But for the European model, it's a completely different scenario, where we see the snowfall as of the 18Z run pretty much move a lot further westward. And in fact, in its latest run, we see the snowfall is mainly relegated to the lower populations and higher elevations of upstate New York and the northern portion of Vermont and New Hampshire. So there's still a decent amount of disagreements with the computer models, which is why I say we still need to keep tabs on this storm system. But I could say with a little bit more certainty that at least if you're in the extreme higher elevations of upstate New York and Vermont, as well as New Hampshire, I think it is more likely you're going to receive accumulating snowfall. Most likely you're going to receive accumulating snowfall in those areas. The question remains if this could also impact the lower elevated areas where it's a little bit more populated, such as in cities like Albany and Burlington, Vermont. That's where it does become a little bit more uncertain, because it really all depends on how strong this ridge is just to the east of it. Of course, if the ridge is a little bit stronger, then we should see less of a snow event for the northeast and primarily a rain event. And there's still that possibility that there might not be enough cold air for any of the northeast to receive snowfall at all. We can't disregard that possibility either. I think there will be some sort of snowfall, but at this point, when we're talking about forecasts this far out, we can't completely rule out every possibility that's out there. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days. But let's say both of the most reliable computer models are completely correct when it comes to the amount of snowfall they want to bring. Let's first take a look at what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall accumulation, because that would bring a little bit more snowfall to the areas further eastward. So taking a look at that, we see that upstate New York, New Hampshire, as well as Vermont receive potentially over a foot of snow. And if we were to, and we could even see accumulating snowfall as far south as northwestern New Jersey, where maybe you could receive an inch out of this. We even see accumulating snowfall right over Connecticut as well as Boston. It isn't much, but only an inch of snowfall, which is why I say I wouldn't completely rule out that possibility of snowfall in those areas. But the European model scenario, it's going to be completely different. Let me show you guys a snowfall forecast for the European model. The European model's snowfall forecast as of the 12Z run, you see that it brings most of the snowfall a lot further westward, more so focusing right over Pennsylvania and the Adirondacks, while places like Vermont and New Hampshire don't get as involved. They receive some snowfall, but Maine doesn't receive snowfall at all out of the European model's 12Z run scenario. So definitely keep that in mind. I'll keep you guys updated once we get a little bit more certainty with the forecast. So the key thing that'll determine how far east or west the snow moves is how strong the ridge is. Just to the east of this trough, as it continues ahead further eastward, the stronger it is, the more likely the snowfall will be kept at a minimum, which means that there won't be as large of an area of snowfall, especially in the northeast, and the snowfall would be a little bit further westward to where maybe more so western Pennsylvania and even as far west as Ohio could get more involved with snowfall. But if this ridge ends up being weaker than anticipated, then there is that possibility we could see the snowfall move a little bit further eastward and maybe even bring some accumulating snowfall up along the coastal New England area. So definitely keep that in mind. We see that in the GFS model scenario. The ridge is quite strong, but taking a look at the European model scenario, we see that the ridge is even stronger in a scenario like this, where the trough just completely moves straight northward, and that keeps the snowfall a little bit further westward, and at a minimum for a lot of these areas, mainly relegated to the higher elevations of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So we're going to definitely keep a close eye on this. We won't get a good idea of how strong this ridge is. I'll say maybe until the Monday time frame. That's when we'll see where the position of this trough is and how strong this ridge actually ends up developing by the time we approach early next week. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated. However, that's not the only snowstorm we're going to need to pay close attention to headed into next week, because right after this potential snowstorm for the Northeast, we have another one that could develop right along the heels of it by the weekend after this weekend, which is Saturday, December 14th, where we do see a small trough moving through the Rocky Mountain ranges. It should encounter some instability because right after this initial snowstorm moves through, we're going to see a new ridge develop over the eastern United States, and that should certainly enhance instability. That'll bring that warm, humid Gulf of Mexico air further northward into the Midwest, and once this trough encounters that, that's just going to be a recipe for some sort of storm system to develop, especially when we do have cold air that's just to the north of it that should allow for that possibility of snowfall. So in the European model scenario, it's quite interesting because it expects two snowstorms to develop out of this jet stream dip, as opposed to what the GFS model is stating, where it only expects one snowstorm to develop out of this. So this first snowstorm, it would be the weaker snowstorm in the European model scenario. This would happen right around Saturday, December 14th, where it mainly brings light snowfall over Minnesota, portions of South Dakota, and maybe northern Nebraska as well. As I'll say, maybe in these areas, you should expect right around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, maybe 3 to 5 in some localized areas, but we do see the snowfall becomes quite heavy by the time this approaches northern Wisconsin at this point, where at that point, you definitely should expect potentially over 5 inches of snowfall from in a scenario like that. But that's not the only snowstorm, like I said, because just right up along the heels of this snowstorm, we have another one that's just behind it with another upper level trough that's going to move southward into the Rocky Mountain ranges, encounter the same amount of instability this storm system encountered, but it's only going to move further southward, which means that the more populated areas of the Midwest could get involved. I'm talking about cities like Des Moines, Iowa could get involved, maybe as far south as Omaha, Nebraska could get involved, and even as far south as Chicago. Right now, Chicago is just south of the rain snow line, but isn't very far. And when we're talking about a forecast that's this far out, we definitely can't rule out that possibility that maybe the storm system could develop a little bit further southward if we end up seeing the ridging be a little bit weaker than anticipated. So actually, the key thing that will determine the strength of this ridge will be the strength of this first low pressure system, because the stronger this low pressure system is, the more likely this ridge would be stronger, because due to the outflow associated with this low pressure system, that would strengthen the amount of ridging that's surrounding it, since all that air that's going to rise thanks to this low pressure system needs to sink somewhere, and it typically sinks where the nearest ridge is. So the stronger this storm ends up being, the stronger this ridge will be, which will eventually play a pivotal role in terms of the track of these two potential snowstorms in the Midwest by the time we approach the December 14th time frame. So we're definitely going to pay close attention to this, but look at how heavy this second snowstorm is when it comes to the amount of snowfall it's bringing. It's bringing heavy snowfall over southern Iowa, and this extends into Wisconsin as well. Milwaukee could get involved with accumulating snowfall, and we see that it's just going to be very strong, and its millibar pressure is going to hover around the low 1000s, but it's certainly going to be enough to bring heavy snowfall in a scenario like this, where we'd be talking about anywhere between 6 to 10 inches of snowfall with a snowstorm like this. So it's definitely something to at least stay tuned towards over the next week. Taking a look at the GFS model, you're going to see it's taking a different scenario. It doesn't expect a first snowstorm to develop, which would happen right around Saturday. As the thing is that in the GFS model scenario, it doesn't it's expecting a stronger amount of ridging, which means that this initial low pressure system that would be the catalyst in developing this first snowstorm moves way to the north thanks to how much stronger this ridge is. So we don't see that first snowstorm develop right over the northern Midwest. However, that second snowstorm that the European model is developing still does develop, and it does develop in a very similar fashion, does bring heavy snowfall in a very similar fashion, which makes me believe there could be a little bit more certainty or truth to this forecast when we see both of the computer models taking a very similar trajectory and strength of this storm system, or at least around the ballpark. I shouldn't say it's similar, but when we're talking about forecasts that's around 240 hours out, this is relatively similar, I should say. So definitely something to keep and watch. I will say that we likely will see some sort of snowstorm in the Midwest by the time we approach the weekend of December 14th. It really all depends on exactly where. But if I were to show you guys the snowfall forecast, if a snowstorm were to happen exactly like what the GFS model is stating, we see that you could easily expect a narrow area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall, and in fact localized areas where you could receive over a foot, as this could impact Minneapolis as well. Des Moines could still get involved with some snowfall. This extends into Wisconsin as well, so this would be very impactful, but I wouldn't say not as impactful as a European model scenario, where we see the European model take a much broader area of snowfall right over the Midwest, where we do see a large area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall from this snowstorm the European model is forecasting. And it's a lot further southward as well, to where even Chicago could get involved with snowfall. But Milwaukee is receiving around 8 to 9 inches of snowfall in this scenario. Des Moines is experiencing right around 4 inches of snowfall, and this extends into northern Missouri as well, where even Kansas City could get involved with up to 6 inches of snowfall in a scenario like this. So I think a snowstorm will happen. It just really all depends on where, and I'll certainly keep you guys updated once we get a little bit more certainty with the forecast. But that's it for now, guys, and thank you guys for watching.